Youngstown Ultra Trail Classic, or as they call it, Yahtzee. It's obviously in Youngstown, Ohio, about 2 hours, 15 minutes from my house. It's at the Mill Creek Park in Youngstown, which is a little tidbit information because they brag about it. It's the second largest metropolitan park in the United States, only behind Central Park. So this is a really huge park itself. If you're going to have an ultra, you do need a lot of land. Even though it is 2 loops of 15 and a half miles or 15 miles, whatever. So to cover that distance, the park itself has to be pretty big, even if they have an extensive trail system within that area. But I was very impressed. I will say right off the bat, the park was very clean. The trails seemed like they were very maintained. The facilities looked excellent. They had all kinds of different sports fields. I think we were the start and finish were right by a couple baseball / softball fields and a soccer field. There was a golf course around there. So a lot of activities actually within the park itself, and a couple ponds, dams and stuff like that, all throughout the park. You really don't get wet or your feet wet at all, but there is a lot of water on the course as far as bodies of water, not wet sections, to clarify that. This is a race I've been looking at for a couple years now. I've been wanting to do. Rick and them asked me this year about doing it, so finally I put it on the calendar to do, and I'm glad I went. Actually stayed last night in Youngstown, about 10-15 minutes away from the park. Even though it's a short drive, I wanted to perform pretty good, and I didn't feel like getting up at 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning to drive out, since it is a 7:30 start for the 50K. And they also have a 25K as well, which starts at 8, which obviously the 25K is only 1 loop, whereas the 50K is 2 loops. It would have just been a really long morning and day if I would have drove out this morning there. So I played it smart and stayed last night. The hotel was kind of a little shadiness, but whatever. Got there about 7 in the morning, got my swag and bib real quick, basically got ready. I didn't even get to look at the t-shirt or anything yet. I know there was they did have some porta johns there, and there's other bathrooms nearby to use. I think it's an underrated race. I will say that. I think more people should go to it, and if they did, I think they would be very surprised with how well they do. Sorry, my throat's a little dry. And how clean the park is, and how fun the race itself actually is. I know some people don't like loops. Alright, so just do the 25K then. But to me, the 2 loops felt different each time. Even though the second time around I did know the course, it just felt different. Maybe because I've never been there, so I'm not used to running on it. I mean, that could play a part, but it seemed like it's constantly changing. So I did finish 3rd overall in 4 hours, 44 minutes, 42 seconds, .94. I believe is what my time was, which I will say I believe is a new 50K PR for me. I'm 90 5% sure it's new 50K PR for me. I don't know offhand. I wasn't really planning on running a sub 5 50K, so I didn't really look at that information. I know I'm jumping around a little bit here, but as things come to me, I did set a pace pro for 5 hours. I know a couple people in the previous years might have did like a 452, 456 range for their time. So I was like, all right, so 5 hours, that should put me, you know, a top 3 spot. And then if I feel really good, I could do sub, because I did 2 sub 50Ks this year on harder courses, which I'll say that now, they are definitely, this course was definitely easier than the other 2 sub 50Ks, Glacier Ridge and Falls Creek, because it only has, I got 3,000 feet of elevation gain and like a change, we'll say like 3,010 or 15 or something like that. So about 1,500 per loop. It's very runnable. So I was feeling pretty good and confident with that effort. Plus it was also not supposed to be technical, only in a few spots here or there, like small sections. So I was like, all right, so I could turn and burn as long as I don't shit the bed or have a bad day. 5 hours, you know, seemed very reasonable to me, which was, I think, 925 or 926 pace overall. And I put positive splits in and easier efforts on the hills. So the back half is obviously going to be, you know, pace is going to be definitely slower because my body is generally going to slow down more the second half of the race than the front, theoretically. I'm not sure if it actually did or not. I'd have to look at the splits. So going in, you know what I mean, I was a little confident, but at the same time going to an area where I have or had no idea what to expect, because, you know, people say, oh, it's 1,500 feet a gain and it's runnable and not really that technical, because you know how that game is. You know, some people say that, but then it's really hard and hilly type deal, you know, depending on the person. But I figured with 13 to 1,500 feet is what they said online, I was like, that's not bad. And even if it was like 3,000 or 4,000 feet, I was like, I could, you know, easily handle that, especially looking at the elevation profile I'm on when I was setting on my pace pro. The hills maybe would have been, the biggest one may have been like 50 to 70 feet. So it was constant rolling when we did hit like hills or anything. Your legs really never, well, mine never really burnt per se. But there was a couple spots that I did walk up the little inclines just to save my legs, because I was like, why am I going to burn my legs up here when I don't have to? Or there was like a set of stairs, metal stairs, where I walked up, because there was no point in just, you know, busting my ass running up them. When there were, well, I don't want to say there was no point, but it would have been dumb to do so. So again, I was trying to be as smart as possible during the whole race. I think I did succeed in that. Just staying within myself and running comfortably all race. Not really putting pressure on myself. There was a little bit of confusion, but I'll leave that out. I actually thought there was a couple guys that took off right away. I was going to pace off of them, but then they started going the wrong way a couple of times, and I had to yell at the one dude. And then they just like disappeared, so I didn't know what happened to them. And I thought I was in first, because like at that set of stairs, the one guy, I guess, who was the winner, he was only 5-ish seconds ahead of me, and I could see him. And I looked at my watch, and then I looked, because it was going off that there's a turn coming, and then I looked up, and he was gone. And those stairs, there's probably 50 stairs, and I was like, how'd he get up there so fast? So then I started hustling a little bit on the first loop. I was like, well, he went the wrong way, so now I'm in first. So I sort of pulled back a little bit, not pushing. I was like, if somebody comes up behind me, then I'll start pushing again. But the guy who was behind me, who came in second, I saw him, probably 15 to 20 times during the race. Like, he only saw me a few times, but I kept looking back at different areas, and I would get a glance at him right as I would like tuck into a different trail, or I'd go around a loop. I saw his like white shirt coming, so I knew I only had like a minute here or there. And that's just what I was basing myself off. It's still running comfortably, but keeping my distance from people behind me. My first lap might have been, I don't want to misquote it, but I want to say like 211, 215 range. But it was definitely under my Pace Pro plan. I was just like, all right, so you got time in the bank, and now your pace times are going to be slower now that the watch is set up for. So as long as your legs don't go bad, you should be able to add a lot more time, like a half an hour to that. I might have been, I want to say 13 or 15 minutes ahead on my Pace Pro on that first lap. I know it was definitely over 12, so we'll say 12 to 15 on my Pace Pro. And I was like, all right, so the second lap should be easier to bank some more time and go under, and just have that just for that in case of an emergency or something happens. So I was pretty confident, just running smoothly. Again, running comfortably all race. I don't know if my heart rate hit 160 at all until probably the last 4 or 5 miles of the race. But again, there's a lot of like rolling hills, nothing drastic. But again, I was walking those little bit of hills just to save my legs, so my time did slow down a little bit on those, but that might have cost me 2-3 minutes during the whole race. And just the hesitation on that first lap when there was nobody in front of me to follow. I did hesitate a little bit as I'm trying to learn the course, where to go, where to turn it on a little bit, where to pull it back type deal. So it was a little bit of a learning process, but that was also my goal on that first lap, and then see where I stood, and then do what I needed to do on the second lap. It did rain a little bit during the race, nothing bad, just enough to get you wet, but not enough where you're soaked or you're going to chafe or anything like that. So that was awesome. Very thankful for that. It was just like a nice little mist, and I stayed warm, so that was also nice. But with you did have some road crossings. You go run by some houses, again, bodies of water, different like museum type buildings. I don't exactly know what they all were. A bunch of dams, some wooden bridges. There's the covered bridge that the aid station used, that you saw for the 50K 4 times. Let me see, the aid stations were like 7, 11, 15.5, 21.5, and 25.5. I put marker on my arm with the mileage, so I knew if they were coming up. That way I didn't have to take my phone out to look. I could just look at my lower arm to see when they were going to come up. That way I knew if I was getting close or not. But I will say this, I did enjoy the race with the mix it had, the different like terrain, and it never got boring. It always stayed fresh. Even on that second lap, it stayed fresh. No matter if you're running on the actually there was like some sand, dusty parts. There's your normal dirt trail. There's a little technical parts, some grassy sections. There was about a mile of asphalt that we ran around. You know, some rocks, stuff like that. Basically, the course threw everything at you that you could think of. So it just kept mixing it up within that different type of terrain itself. So again, it kept you really engaged and not bored. You know, some races it seems like you're running through the same type of terrain the whole time, and it gets boring and your mind starts to wander. But this kept you actually engaged the whole time, so that was very nice. And just again, the way they set the course up, I mean, it was a little bit hard to follow if you've never been there, like on the first loop, just because I'm trying to second guess myself while I'm running a little bit harder. But if I was going a little bit slower, it wouldn't have been as bad. But I just enjoyed how they designed the course. They used flagging. It was pink flagging. For the most part, is what you're following. There was some on the ground. I know when we started the race in the field, they had like American flag flagging. They did have a couple signage, but for the most part, you're running and following pink ribbons. And honestly, I mean, the ribbons were spaced out a little bit, so you might not see one and then the next one, you know, in the same view. But they like double flagged it if there was a turn, and you really couldn't. They didn't need to add any more flagging, I guess is what I'm saying. And you know, I'm very critical about how people mark the course, but I think they did an excellent job with the ribbon, and they didn't need to add any more to the trail itself. Even though you might not have seen one from the next one, there was nowhere for you to turn, and you would have felt comfortable on the course not seeing one. We'll put it that way. But I guess even though, still for the most part, even after you lost view of one to the next one, you came upon another one very quickly. And again, they used like the double flagging for like a turn. And they had some arrows on the ground as well. I think it was orange. Maybe it was pink. I don't know. It sort of blended in with the dirt, so I was kind of confused if it was orange or pink arrows sometimes pointing in your right direction, as well as the flags. Or they had like a straight line indicating not to go a certain way as like a double reassurance. So that was nice. So they did do their, I think they did go a little above and beyond of what a lot of races do. The 8 stations were stocked pretty well. Well, I guess there was really only 2 8 stations, a start/finish line, and then that covered bridge. So I guess there was really only 2 8 stations. But they were stocked well with water, Gatorade, your normal trail essentials. Well, staples, I guess. And the volunteers knew what they were doing. And most of them, I would say, were trail runners themselves, so they were very helpful and friendly. There was, even though it's the second largest like metropolitan park, I was expecting a little bit more traffic in the park itself, when it comes to like other runners, or when using the trails or just the road, and seeing that maybe because it was like an overcast day or something like that, I was expecting to be more like a North Park where there's tons of people, but it was nice that there really wasn't. I might have ran into, I don't know, maybe 30 people out there today that weren't part of the race. A couple dogs, so you didn't have to worry about going around people and sharing the trail much, which is always a nice benefit. I don't know how much the park actually gets used for trails or road. Looks like some good fishing as well. I don't know. With it being a runnable course and not really that technical, I took those Saucony Cohesion TR16s again. The ones that I had trouble with at Baker to give me blisters, I switched out the insoles, and it seemed to make a world of a difference today, especially on this course. They were perfect for this course, grippy, but still allowed me to run faster in all that terrain as well, which is cool. Wore gaiters, calf sleeves, my ISO Chill Under Armours, my yellow shirt, MP3 player, my Mission hat, my Ultra Spire waist belt. I did have a bunch of stuff in my waist belt in the pouch, but I never really used it. I think a couple wet wipes, a reusable bottle, my bandana, maybe a honey stinger in there, but I never like really touched that stuff. The only thing in there I touched was my Noon tablets. I put one with water, my bottles, one with water, one with Noon. I filled it up twice with regular Noon, lemon lime, and once with caffeine. And I ditched the caffeine pretty quickly. I might have drank 4 ounces out of it. It just was making me burp and just upsetting my stomach. So I wanted to empty it out and switch back to the non-caffeinated version, which was very smart. I think I performed a lot better and maintained a lot better without that caffeinated Noon. It just seems like recently it's been upsetting my stomach, and I felt it coming as soon as I started drinking it. I did have one gel on the course, which was caffeinated chocolate goo. But other than that, it was just a couple pieces of watermelon, a couple pieces of pickles, a couple small pieces of beef jerky, maybe some Gatorade at an aid station, or Coke. And that was it. Like, I might have... The food that I ate probably totaled 400 calories. I want to say between 3 and 5, but I want to say it's 4 at the most during the race. So I was very calorie deficient. I just don't know what it is. Like during the races recently, I just haven't been eating during them. I guess my liquid's just enough to maintain me generally for short, like 50 Ks ish. But I do gotta start eating more and forcing myself. But just again, the normal food that I would eat from like an aid station, just besides the watermelon and stuff, just didn't seem like appealing. It's just like, maybe because I ate that stuff so much while I was running, now I can't tolerate it. But I don't know. I gotta figure that shit out, because I definitely can't be running these ultras on 400 calories. But my legs felt good again all race. They did get stiff. As soon as I stopped, they did get stiff, like almost instantaneously. So I sat in my car, took a nap for 15 minutes, turned the heater on while I was napping, but also another like 15-20 minutes after just having the heat, and it seemed to loosen them up pretty good. I did eat a little bit after the race. I had just a couple, maybe a sandwich size amount of, they had Philly steak pizza, I had a bag of chips, a couple Gatorades, but that was about it. My stomach really still didn't want to eat or feel hungry. Who knows? I did eat one more little piece of pizza before I left because I was there for 3 hours waiting for my friend to finish. Oh, I had a Fitty too after the race. Now I got some root beer and another bag of chips. I'm trying to slowly add to my calorie intake. But with my time of being 4:44, 42, I definitely could have knocked, I don't know, I want to say 25-30 minutes off of that. Again, I never pushed until that last like 4 or 5 miles. But before that, I was just running comfortably in the 8s and 9s. I might have had a 10 or 2. I think I had 2 10s. But just running comfortably. I didn't need to push, so I wasn't going to. So if I would have been like 8s or 7s, which definitely would have been able to on the course, especially in that rollingness. Every time I started to go, like, lean forward or push a little bit, I was definitely dropping down into the 7s. And on that road section, I was like a flat 7. Or whatever. Now, 10 minutes-ish, say 10, 12 minutes of time when it came off, because I did go off course right before, we'll say around mile 25 or 25 and a half. I didn't do it on the first lap, so I don't know why I did it on the second. For some reason, I didn't see a sign or flagging. There was a bridge, like wooden steps, so we did like a couple, you go up one, and there's a flat wooden part, and then you go down, then across this bridge to get back to that covered 8 station, which would have been my 4th time there. Somehow I went to the left instead of the right. I think a flag or something got pulled there. I could be mistaken. So I started going to the left because I saw the flags to go to the left. We'll go to the left. Takes me back on the loop that I was just finishing. And I went about a half mile off course there. I was like, this looks familiar. Like I kept thinking in my mind, I feel like I've been on this section for the 3rd time now. And then when I got to this like little parking lot area where we go across the grass, I was like, yes, definitely in the wrong way, but didn't know what to do. And I'm still running forward, looking at my watch, trying to pan out to see what, where I went off while still running forward for some stupid ass reason. Then I finally realized I just gotta backtrack. So before I backtracked, right there, I just like stepped off the trail and shit real quick off the side of the trail. Oh, it was horrible. Because I was like, all right, now you gotta speed. And I was already feeling a poop ruin. So I just stepped off, and then I didn't even waste time grabbing my wet wipes out. I just grabbed a bunch of wet leaves right off the ground and sticks. Just wiped my ass a couple of times real quick with different leaves. Was back on my way going back. I still had a bunch of leaves and stuff in my compression shorts when I finished. I think I even took a picture of my leg because there's a bunch of like leaves stuck to my leg still. I'll share that picture eventually. Anyway, so that mile I lost because I had like 32 point something miles. that was actually a 10-minute mile. That was the one of 10 minutes that I had. So you take that mile that I went off course and the poop, that would have dropped me down 10 minutes right there, so I would have been in the 2:30s easily. But when I got to that, I didn't know what to do until I got to that covered aid station again. Because I was like, I was still hesitant that I was going the right way after I corrected myself. Then I got there and I told them, because they were like, what happened? I was like, I went off a damn half mile and stuff. And they're like, all right, get in the game, the one guy said. And I just took off from there, dude. I was like a rocket for the next 3 or 4 miles. I went from, 9.5 to 8 minutes, like 8:05, 8:06 pace. And I was even into the 7s, and I think 6s a little bit, but not overall for the mile. So I was flying, trying to catch up to anybody that passed me. I knew that Comer passed me, so I kept asking people, hey, how far ahead was that guy in the white shirt? A couple guys said like only a minute, but then I think they were confusing him with a guy in an orange shirt. But I never caught back up to them, so I ended up finishing 3rd. So going off course cost me at least 1 place. Well, it cost me 2nd, for sure. It happens. I was pissed about it. Well, not that, just more disappointed in myself, I guess, than anything. Because I thought there was 2 other dudes this morning went off course, and it just sort of was in the back of my mind the rest of the race that they were not in front of me, so I wasn't pushing when I could have been or should have been. And I just think it just rewired my brain a little bit, made my brain take me the wrong way or something like that. I don't know. But it was almost ironic that, well, it is ironic that I thought 2 people went off course, so I was pissed about them going off course, especially since I yelled at the one dude like a mile into the race that I actually went off myself. So that really did piss me off even more personally, because I hold myself to that higher standard. But I did burn my leg. That's why my legs were sore after the race, because I was turning and burning so fast. They were getting wore out at that higher speed, whereas when I was running comfortably, I could have probably ran another 30, 40 miles if I needed to at that 8.5, 9 minute pace on that course. But whatever. But I got this cool monkey. I'll get to that here in a second. For 3rd place. Now there's a story behind that, which I'll get to here in a second. So on the course, we'll say, I don't know where it was. I can't remember if it was like mile 8 or mile 6. One of those 2. I can't remember if it was before the aid station or after the aid station. There was that, like a monkey like that tied to a tree. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. I was like, wonder why that's there. I was like, maybe somebody just put it there. The race director itself or whatever is just doing something for fun to break up the scenery. And this is where there's a couple, like this. We'll put it this way: the steeper part of the race. We're actually going like up and down a couple times in the hill. So I had to ask when I was handed that monkey, like, well, maybe not right away after I finished, but I asked him later. I was like, all right, so is that monkey just something random, or is there a story behind it? And he told me the story. So I guess there was like a carnival or like a monkey sanctuary, gonna have to Google this because I want to like actually read about it. Years ago, before the race actually started, around that park, where that monkey was tied to the tree, and these monkeys got loose for a couple weeks until they got them back up or eliminated. I don't know if they shot them or they captured them or whatever they did, like 20 years ago before this race even started. So the locals call those up and down hills where the monkeys escaped and were hanging out at the Monkey Hills. So that was kind of neat to hear that story, that they gave top 3, male and female, the monkeys because of that little bit of history that happened within the park 20 plus years ago. So if you get a chance, Google it. The monkeys that got loose in Youngstown 20 plus years ago. Wish I had time to look before I did the recap, but just something different that just adds a little bit more of a fun element to the race. And I'm glad I asked the question, and I'm glad that they did something like that, just as a little, again, added excitement to the race. So that's fun. And then the race director stood at the finish line for everybody to come in and handed out the hat, your finisher hats and your bumper sticker, which he did that at Glacier Ridge as well. So he made sure everybody was there, and every time he got pulled away a little bit, he's like, hey, somebody make sure if there's somebody coming, let me know. So it's nice to see that the race directors, when they take that extra special care not to miss anybody, which is another reason why you should come and do this race next year. Other than that, I'm trying to think anything else to add. Might be about it. What? Oh, they had a bunch of food: pizza, hummus, peanut noodles, pita, chips. After the race, Gatorade, a bunch of different beers, water, hot dogs. Oh, I know I'm gonna miss something. Anyway, there's a bunch of different food after the race. And with the course, all right, so last night it was raining, it stormed a little bit. I know it started storming when I hit Butler, and basically rained until I got to Youngstown last night. Even with that rain and then some more rain last night, I will say this, the course, I was very impressed with the course being as dry as it was. I would say there was no, well, all right, on the first loop, there was no water on the course, and it wasn't muddy at all. The second loop, there was a little bit from the rain that we had during the race, and it was only maybe one puddle and one little loose, like, mud spot. Which, if that was any other race, it would have been sloppy and messy and would have held water. So this course was very dry, even with the couple hours of rain. Well, probably 6 to 8 hours of rain last night. And when I say rain, there was definitely a downpour at times, tons of lightning and thunder. So very happy with the course being dry with the conditions and the storms from last night. So that's cool. As well, just another tidbit. So if you don't like your feet wet, this is another good course for you, because it will be dry. Even if it does rain or rains during the race, you're going to have excellent footing. You're not going to worry about slipping on rocks or going through mud puddles or, flowing creeks or streams or springs. You're going to be very happy, and your feet are going to be dry. I mean, unless it's raining during the race and it gets into your shoes and stuff like that, nothing you can do about that. But the course itself will be dry. And then I did try, well, I guess 2 products today. different ones. One was zinc ointment because I still had a little bit of residual from a blister I had on my foot because the skin was finally starting to come off, and I took some fingernail clippers to it the other day to cut the skin away, and I cut too much and made a little bit of a red spot, so I put some zinc oxide on it this morning, and then I put Salty Britches ointment on my feet because with the shoes like killing my feet from being sweaty and stuff last time and wet, I wanted to try these Salty Britches ointment. It basically coats your feet, keeps them from like a water barrier. Don't know how much it actually works, but when I took my socks off, my feet were dry. My socks felt dry. Now I don't know if it's because there was no water on the course, because I was sitting in my car for like 40 minutes before I actually took my shoes and stuff off, if they dried them out. But my feet weren't wrinkly or sore, so I think it did help. I'm going to test it again this week on a hot day to see if my feet sweat and if my feet are a little bit moist afterwards, but I think these did help. And this morning I did also take my beet powder and some baking powder, my vitamins, and I think that helped keep myself in check, being able to run a little bit smoother all day. Probably about it now. I'm happy I went, glad I went. I think the park is awesome. Need to check it out. I think more people need to go. It would, honestly, it will be, or is. I don't think they could really make too many changes to the course. But even if they did, this is definitely a course. If you're looking to PR for a 50K, this would be a really good one to do that at. Not that I'm saying it's over easy. You know, it's not a real trail, but it's with that every kind of terrain mixed in. You're just gonna be able to run faster and longer. If you're actually looking for, we'll put it this way, a trail race that's not a rail trail, this is definitely a 50K that you can PR at, and I would recommend it. And I think the race director, the volunteers and stuff, and the setup crew do a really good job, and I would recommend it just on the people that they are in general, on top of the course, and the cool hats. I don't even know where my hat's at. The bumper sticker and stuff, and then the flagging. So with all those things that they did really good, I would recommend this race. And so check out the Youngstown Ultra Classic next year, or Yahtzee.